Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction. The talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org, for more info, or you can email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Annie Aaron. We'll be discussing her new book, December Alliance, available at authorreputationpress.com. You know, Annie was brought to us by Author Reputation Press. I mean, listen, if you have a book that you need moved, you have to reach out to our great friends over there. Again, you can find them at authorreputationpress.com. And guys, listen, I am so excited to have Annie on the line with us today because, listen, the book that we're going to be discussing, December Alliance, it's a fictional narrative, but it's a fictional narrative with such a wonderful and impactful message, and really something that we need in our human family today. Listen, let's face it, okay, let's call a spade a spade. We're all facing the same pandemic globally, and it's a tough time for everyone involved, regardless of the severity of it. Everybody is affected, and now more than ever, we need love amongst our human family. And although this is not the book that, specifically, Annie's book is not discussing love during a pandemic, but it's something that is transferable. It's something that is applicable because the central theme is really about finding someone that loves you, finding someone that really connects with you and cares for you. And, regardless of whether that's a personal relationship, a friendship, a family relationship, it really, again, encompasses love in all forms. And something that, again, is such an impactful message and really needing to be heard and discussed during this current adversity that we're all facing as a human family. So without further ado, we have Annie here on the line with us. Annie, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a guest with us on People of Distinction. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely looking forward to it. So, as I stated before, Annie Aaron, we're discussing December Alliance. Let's jump right in. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Oh my gosh, the book is so much fun. I had forgotten because I write books, and it's the first novel I've actually written. So it's a romance. It's a longing for the type of love that evades most of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about writing letters to a friend that knows everything about you, and you can tell this person anything because they know you. So Annie is living in the country, Ann Olson, and she's a mother of two rambunctious youngsters. And she longs for the college days when she had plans of showcasing her talents. But now she's married, and she has a husband to take care of and chores to do. And she confides in her old college friend that her life as a wife and mother is fine, but it's not exactly what she had dreamed of with the love aspect. So then when her life is turned upside down, she wonders, how can she seize the day?
Wonderful. Listen, right off the bat, talking about love, and that feeling, just even talking about it, about having this love and this connection just easily uplifts. I'm just hearing you talk, I'm uplifted already because I'm just thinking about love and being in love and just the feeling that it brings. So that's wonderful, but also such a relatable concept in terms of falling in love is great, and finding, that special significant other is fantastic. But at the end of the day, really what she's talking about is not losing her particular identity, her specific identity, and, kind of balancing those two. And that is so universal in such a relatable message. And listen, I'm sure a lot of us have been there and been in that particular situation, so we can relate and we understand how difficult it is to really balance the dichotomy between the two that way. Now, following off of that, I love the title, December Alliance, right? Such a very specific image that comes to mind. But talk to our listening audience, Annie, about how you developed that title creatively and brought that into fruition, and really what that title means to you and means to the book.
Well, the title is an alliance. And when you think of an alliance, you have two somebodies getting together. So there's romance in the air throughout and she is not the only one that has love in her veins. So I love John Keats, and he died at age 25, but he was born clear back in 1795.
Mm-hmm.
But I even insert a little the Eve of St. Agnes in it, where the young virgin is looking for the total love, and Madeline is in the poem. She's looking for her love, and they go out and they don't eat during this poem, and then they're hoping for that special man that will come and pick up on them. So this book is really about human relations with family, friends, how we treat our neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
and how we treat each other. And so I have to say that it's in a format much like a journal, only it is Ann Olson writing to her old college friend about painful changes in her life. And so as a mother of two youngsters and a husband, she has to she has a lot of things to do. And so the question was, what does the title mean? Well, she allies herself with someone, but several people. We pull in her mother that comes to visit from Idaho. So she also gets pulled into the story, and everything is tension starts in the first chapter, and as she's writing this is before cell phones and before the internet. So that's why she's writing letters. My kids don't even know how to write a letter or where the stamp goes on a mailed piece. They don't know how to do that. When my first kids went off to the military, to the Air Force, they're like, Mom, where do I put the words? Like that I'm addressing this letter to you, and where does the stamp go? I mean, really. So anyway, with the thing that got me thinking about this is there's tension in the first chapter. I mean, we get started right off. And so it starts with the entry, entire sequence of events by letter, sort of. She's writing to her friend that's in St. Louis, and it's like, let me fill you in when I recover a bit from my safe little life being turned upside down. So that's basically, there's some alliances going on in December, and it's a holiday feel throughout. And we have Halloween, we have Thanksgiving settings, we have Christmas, we have Valentine's Day. So it's sort of like, let's celebrate all of these wonderful things with our families with traditions, and that's all in there as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, well, it's a wonderful time of the year, right? And how amazing, because again, for me, the first, as I said, December Alliance is a very specific image that comes to mind. And alliance, of course, very straightforward, right? Teaming up, partnership, aligning with one another. But then specifically December is such a great month as well, because of course, we have Christmas, and it's all about coming together. It's all about love and spending time with your loved ones, and really sharing that. So for me, I just instantly went right there, and I'm so glad that you were able to kind of speak on it in the way that you did. And you were talking about John Keats, and how his poetry inspired you in a particular section of this book, December Alliance, and how you kind of showcased that, or at least gathered, inspiration from that. Perfect segue into my next question. Talk to me about your inspiration. Okay, now inspiration in itself will take so many different forms. So of course, directly, what inspired you to write this particular story, December Alliance, but also what inspired you as a writer? I mean, did you always see yourself as a writer? Were you inspired by other authors, of course, poets? Really, what inspired you to embark upon this creative journey?
Well, I've always been inspired by my mother. She took English after she was in classes, and actually became a school teacher after she lost her first husband in World War II. And so her children were almost teenagers before she went to college to get her degree as an English teacher. And so she's always been a great inspiration. She loves to write poetry. But I've also been inspired by people's lives, their real lives, and what they do in their lives. And so I started out sort of like doing family cookbooks. getting the aunt's recipes together. And one of my very first books that was published for our family was called Family Favorites. And on the side, I had a lot of aunts and uncles, large families, who actually tamed the Idaho wilderness 100 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And my mom was they milked like 36 cows, but they only gave like a quart of milk back then. They give gallons now. And I was inspired with poetry, cookbooks, and biographies. And so when I took my first creative writing class at BYU, Brigham Young University, the subject was poetry on this one section. My instructor said, look, Annie, you have enough content here for a trilogy in book form. So I don't have a lack of things not to say. But when I decided I was going to do a novel, because I was really more into history and the true stories of people, and I always will be doing that, but I thought of Gone with the Wind. What am I going to do with a novel that anybody is interested about? Well, Margaret Mitchell, when she started writing Gone with the Wind in 1926, and it wasn't published until 10 years later. But she thought, as she grew up, she had heard all these old war stories about the Civil War, and she thought, I'm going to put those stories together in a novel. And that's exactly what she did. So then it started me thinking, what are some memorable stories of my family, friends, co-workers, as the process for this particular book, December Alliance. I wanted it as a romance, telling to the, distant friend who was swamped as a school teacher, telling her because she didn't have time to pick up the phone, she doesn't have time to write back. But Ann Olson is desperately in need of telling somebody this story. She doesn't have the money, perhaps, to call, because back then we paid a lot of money, back before internet, doing things like that.
Absolutely.
And the inspiration is basically just all great authors. And I would like this classified as a literary book, not a boring literary book, but one that's easy to read and makes sense, and it's very introspective. And you know what? I think that I have a lot of inspiration when it comes to romance, because I've had several serious relationships in high school, then in college, and after I went to Jackson, Wyoming, and studied I went to work with a friend, and we had a blast. But I remember one of my gentleman friends that I'd go out with, we would go to friends' wedding receptions. This was in college days. And we'd stop at this little cafe in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and we would buy French fries and cocoa after we were done with the evening. And it was just so much fun. And, you have these feelings of love and acceptance. I think we were a little more subdued back, in the days, because I'm not a spring chicken these days. So.
Absolutely.
Lots of inspiration out there.
That is so beautiful, hearing everything that you just said. And really, what I love is that this is, of course, a fictional narrative, right? This is not a direct story. It's all created. But what's beautiful about it is it's steeped in reality. It's steeped in realistic circumstances, and you're talking about your own experiences and how that kind of manifested into this fictional narrative and helped push this narrative along. And for me, a lot of the books that I remember reading growing up, or the books that I read now that I normally gravitate more to, especially the fictional ones, they're always the ones that I love the most are the ones that are relatable. Right? The ones that are, again, grounded and steeped in some realistic circumstances. So much that you just said really kind of highlights the story and helps our listening audience really connect with that. And, quick pause just to talk to my listening audience again. Guys, here we're on the line with Annie Aaron discussing her book, December Alliance, again, available at authorreputationpress.com. Now, Annie, following off of that, listen, we talked about the book, we talked about the inspiration, we talked about the title. There's so many fantastic things that we've been able to really pull from that. Now, last question that I want to ask really about this book in particular, because there's a lot of other titles that you've written as well that I want to kind of really take an opportunity to highlight. But if there's one specific message, and of course there's hills and valleys of things that we've already encompassed just within this interview, but if there's one central theme that you would really want our People of Distinction audience to know about your book, December Alliance, what would that message be?
Well, I think it would be nice to bring back letter writing. So this has an interesting unraveling of events through letters that she writes to her friend in St. Louis. And so since this was before cell phones and the internet, you know, our family was also letter writers, and my oldest sister was 17 years older than me. And when she and her husband finished college at Utah State University, they actually moved to Detroit, Michigan. And so since, you know, I grew up in Idaho and ended up marrying a dairy farmer and having several children, we just enjoyed weekly letters as a family, and occasionally photos. It was just too expensive to call by phone, like I had mentioned before. But, you know, where have all the good men and women gone is the question. And we need to seize the day. So carpe diem comes up in it.
Beautiful.
Ann Olson needs to decide how she's going to seize the day. And we have all the social media today, and we have lost the art of letter writing. But you know what? I would like to encourage everyone to maybe write a letter to the men and women in the armed forces that are over in Afghanistan and these other places. Find an address to somebody you can write to and share with them just your normal life that comes up.
Absolutely.
And so that's carpe diem. You got to just do it, because if you don't do it, it never gets done. You've got to put it on your list. So beautiful.
I mean, listen, what better message, you know, to close out that book, December Alliance, on seize the day. Get out there and really take advantage of that. You know, next question that I really would love to ask is, so you've written a number of books. How would you say after publishing your first book, how would you say that your writing style has changed or developed since your very first book that you've written?
Oh, well, it is, I can actually write a coherent sentence.
That is always good.
I've took a lot of classes. So I started at a little junior college in Idaho because I was born and raised in Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, people say, well, nobody lives out there. And I said, that is the beauty of it. And we don't need anyone else there. That's awesome. But, you know, I don't want the simple rehashing of the same old Cinderella story. I think I love original stories. And if I do nothing else, I want an original story that's introspective, of self-discovery, awareness, and helping you become a better you as well.
Mm-hmm.
And for yourself, expanding your own talents. And I love in this because there's the Keats poem about the Saint Agnes Eve, and it talks about dreams and visions. And there's also a little stuff going on with Anne. She has dreams and visions, and that paranormal sixth sense, when it actually is deciding, what do I do? Then she realizes, oh, just be yourself. Just be yourself. Don't be like so-and-so. Be yourself. So that is the most important thing, I think.
Continuing on to some of those other titles that you've written, we have two other books that we really want to quickly go into. The first one is Joseph. And the second one is Sadie Spider Does Lunch. Talk to our listening audience. Just give a quick, brief synopsis. Of course, we don't want to take too much away from December Alliance. That was the book of the hour. That's why we're here. But talk to us quickly, if you can, give us a brief synopsis of Joseph, and then also Sadie Spider Does Lunch.
Okay, Joseph is actually taken from a musical that was done about King Tut, and it was it was really hard to figure out how it's going to be changing to a novel. And so there's a lot of these things you have to work out. I'm not a formula writer person. I want to have everything original. So this is set in Egypt a long time ago. And it's basically the story of Joseph of Egypt.
Wonderful. Okay. And then Sadie Spider Does Lunch.
So I love children. I've had a lot of children, and I love telling stories, but it got really old when I was sitting down to read to the children. And it's like, oh my gosh, this book is so, where's the nice pictures, or where's the storyline? Is there anything to this? And so I started telling stories to my children using their own names. But this and Sadie Spider Does Lunch is just a children's story that is so fascinating. It's about a little spider that's up in the window, and she sees a ladybug, and she's like, time for lunch. On a beautiful spring day. It actually happened in my own kitchen window. And it was actually one of the first assignments I did with creative writing. And it became a little children's story. So I was, handing it out to my soccer kids, because I was a soccer coach for everyone. I had 6 sons. So having sons, you do soccer, you do baseball, you do football.
Absolutely.
I have a son that was a championship for rugby when he was a senior state.
Wow.
So there's a ton of stuff going on. Lots of fun. I want to have fun. I don't want to have Cinderella rehashed, because I think it should be banned in the world. And they lived happily ever after. No, thank you.
I'm right there with you.
Seizing the day and working their lives out.
Absolutely. Well, I'm right there with you. Guys, again, here on the line with Annie Aaron. We finished discussing her book, December Alliance. Went and also touched up on some of the other titles that she has written, Joseph, and then Sadie Spider Does Lunch. Just so you guys are aware, her website is in the process of being created, so take a look at that once it comes out. Be on the lookout for it. But in the meantime, make sure you head over to authorreputationpress.com to pick up this title, December Alliance, and there'll be more information, of course, on the other books shortly through that as well. Annie, this has been absolutely incredible, and we truly appreciate you bringing this book to our table. And listen, as we started, this book has such a phenomenal message that just right at the heart of the story is it's all about love, and what better message can we talk about when we're talking about, our human family and what we're all going through today. So guys, get out there, seize the day, love one another, do whatever you can to help, and also pick up this phenomenal book by Annie Aaron, December Alliance, again, available on authorreputationpress.com. Annie, thank you so much for being a guest with us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.